Hello there.
I finally snagged you and brought you here to join me and Justin.
Yay. I'm happy
Yay!
to be here. Thank
I
you for
know.
inviting me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. I couldn't go another few what? How long has it been? I've had only no, we have Neil and Swede on. I know we had Swede what last week? Yeah. And Neil was like a couple weeks ago on a weekend where everyone was toasted AF. But hey, that's what we do
Yeah,
here.
that was a
Right.
long that was a long night.
That was a long night. Yeah.
I'm about to say, well, that's like kind of like the motto. Like that's like the MO of like especially like Neil's thing is to be
Mhm.
toasted AF or
Mhm.
being on a show with him toasted
Toast.
AF.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
One of the two.
Well, he went to sleep like a responsible adult who had to be up early, and I got really hammered and was definitely drunk the next day at work.
Oh no.
It
I
was
do not recommend.
it was pretty bad and exciting at the same time.
Nice. Very nice.
We may have had like a 2 hour yelling match on the Discord afterwards
Oh yeah.
What?
Mhm.
with my brother.
Oh my gosh.
Which we need to work on getting your brother on here, but we need to give him a talk first. He's a I don't know any good words. Your brother is your brother, you know. He's
Un-
excitable.
Unfiltered,
Un-
uncensored,
Mm,
yes.
uncivilized.
Don't
mm,
get me Don't get me wrong.
mhm,
His
mhm.
brother is cool. He's a legit person. He's good people, but there needs to be some talk.
I
Um,
see. Gotcha.
anyway, let's say hi to the famous. Hi, Elle. Nice to
Hi,
see you. I know
Elle.
I saw Susan.
Hey,
Hey, Susan.
Susan.
And of course, I'm sure most of half of atheist community knows. Yes, I have a Twitter now.
Yes, yes.
Yay.
And all the atheists are coming every which way to follow Miss Jenna on
Mm.
Twitter.
I have nothing there other than just tweeting this show out. So there you go.
That's all that
That's
matters.
that's all that
That's you.
matters.
To be honest with you, that's the best way to handle Twitter. I don't handle Twitter well. I don't. I don't
So
handle Twitter well, and that is
mhm,
unfortunate. But if you just go in just to post when you're about to do your show, and maybe just like connect with the community,
mhm.
that's the best way to do it, and then get the hell out.
I keep hearing oh, go ahead.
I would say most people. So I mean, people that do like books and blogs or videos and video chat, and they engage in other ways in
Mm.
person that are meaningful. They usually don't interact on Twitter and Facebook because it's so toxic. They use those platforms as an outlet, as a way to promote content or to give
Mhm.
updates.
Mhm.
Now, there's some people that have built their brand and their platform on Twitter and Facebook, but if you have external content and you actually want to utilize your time effectively, you will stay out of the comment sections and the replies and the retweets and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So it
and
just depends on how you want to build your platform and your brand and your
mhm.
channels.
That's true.
Indeed. And
I
some
can
people actually
here.
built there we go. And some people actually built their brands based on kind of like multi. No, they didn't base it on multi, but it was great to see
I
you.
wish I built my
I
brand based on
I base
multi.
my whole life on multi.
There we go. Okay, that makes sense. But people have like based their brands off of, being toxic on social media. Like that's how they grew, which is messed up, but it happens, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Mm.
controversy sells. Anything that's
Yep.
entertaining. Attacking other people that are popular. Being like counterculture.
Mhm.
Um, and it's an easy way to get a good start and get a good following is to hop in a popular national conversation, especially on Twitter, because using hashtags, you can jump right into a national conversation and just say something provocative. And we all have this problem where we can't just let somebody be wrong on the internet. So we start
Mhm.
engaging and we give them their platform.
Yep. These are facts. I
Okay.
just I just got out of a Twitter argument literally like about 10 minutes ago.
Is that why you were late?
Uh,
This is why
yeah, yeah. I
Twitter.
was. You see what happened? Twitter,
Stay out.
Twitter.
Stay
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I had to. I couldn't stop. I was just like, you know what? I need to mute you now because right now you are making my head hurt
Hmm.
for how wrong you are.
Yeah.
And especially when I have brought sources. I tell my partner all the time, especially when I write, I'm a a citation whore. So I'm always according to resource that is.
Maya?
Hey Maya. So yeah, that's so like oftentimes like if I especially like if I get into like a topic that I know about because I read about it and studied it and things of that nature, and I have resources to back up the things that I say, and then they still kind of was like, yeah, I don't agree with that. I disagree. I'm like, how sway? Like
Mm,
you gonna disagree with tons of
Hmm.
experts that actually studied this particular phenomenon,
right.
and just to say that just so that it can fit whatever type of crap that you decide to put on Twitter, okay. But and I can't stay away, so I
Yeah.
apologize,
You
y'all.
gotta you gotta pick and choose your battles. So I used to um, admin and run a bunch of Facebook groups and help run some bigger pages, and it's time consuming. I mean, you can spend 24/7 arguing with people that in your mind they have no clue what they're talking about, and their mind you have no clue what you're talking about, and in a big group setting where there's 20 people on this side and 20 people on this side, everybody's so entrenched you're just talking past each other, and as long as
Mm-hmm.
there's enough people making the same noises that they want to hear, you're not going to convince them because they're being reinforced every step of the way that you're refuting them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a lot, and then I stepped away from social media for a long time, and I came back, and I have my page. It's really small. I just use it to to post stuff that I come across. But when I go through Facebook and Twitter now, I'm like, you got to be very selective because you can come across a post like I live in Michigan, so I come across a lot of stuff of anti-vaxxers, of these Christian nationalists that want to
Mm-hmm.
take over the Capitol, and there's all kinds of crazy shit. So you gotta like if they're kind of like isolated on a neutral page, you might be able to engage and at least leave some content for other people to see, leave
Hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
reputable citations and good articles to read.
Right.
But if it's like there was, for instance, there was one earlier from M Live, which is like a Michigan blog, where 25% of people from Michigan surveyed said they're not going to take the COVID-19 vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
and every single comment was, it's a China virus in a lab, mind control, first they said no mask, now one mask, now two masks, next year we'll be wearing 19 masks to match COVID-19. And it was just every conspiracy in the book, every, hateful, hurtful comment. And I was like, nope, I'm not, it's not worth,
Mm-hmm.
my time and
Mm-hmm.
energy. And you're just going to get trounced on the moment you say something, no matter what evidence you bring, because they don't trust the experts, they don't trust the evidence.
That's crazy.
We've lost we've lost the narrative with a certain fairly large subculture that has no trust in the government, as far as it's not their particular side of the government, and pretty much all of the experts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very uphill battle when you're trying to get ahead of this. And as from the SciComm, the science communicators and the scientists and the government communities, it's their fault. It's our fault for letting it get this bad, um, because there's just not enough effort and quality education from the ground up. People are led and allowed and indoctrinated to believe whatever they want, and then when they hit 40, we're like, hey, just believe the experts. They always have your best interests in mind, and it just doesn't work that way.
Mm-mm.
Right. Right. And well, I say this all the time. I really wish that, critical thinking skills was taught in schools.
Precisely.
It's not. It's not. Even when you get to college, it's not.
Nope, it's not.
You know, I mean,
not in general classes, but I think there are some type of skills that promote that kind of thinking.
You kind of find that mostly in literature courses or writing courses.
Yeah.
But even then they don't, right? They tell you to go get certain citations, certain sources from certain things, and some classes will even give you a list of acceptable sources.
Yeah.
And so you could just be going through the motions. These are the 10 different places they want me to look from. And I'm going to just go grab 3 or 4, whatever, sprinkle it into my papers, fill out the formatting and call it a day. You don't actually have to buy into it. You just have to pick some and make it work. I mean, it's not until you get to the higher levels where you're introducing novel ideas into the field that you have to start using your creative thinking and, critical thinking skills, where you're trying to add to your field of the broader field of knowledge and interact with your peers on almost a competitive level where you're actively trying to refute one another and help teach each other. But that's, most people never even get close to that level. They just cram everything into their head and then go out in the world and find some totally unrelated job and then get on the job training and then just go on with their life.
These are facts because that's my life. And because I've been thinking the stuff that I studied as far as like college is concerned, that is not my job.
Same.
Not my job. So yeah.
My degree was in like biology with the emphasis in, I mean, obviously with some portions of it too, but you didn't even need a degree to necessarily get into a trade school to become a nurse, right? Because it's just a license. It's just a license. You can just go to any school without a degree.
You're not a real nurse.
Anyways, I got my degree in biology with an emphasis in cognitive science and psychology. So I took all of this psychology and cognitive science courses thinking like, oh, I'm going to be like a mental health rehab specialist, whatever. And sure, for a while that seemed like a promise, but then you have to do so much more outside of that. And then once I got it, I still didn't have a job. I still didn't do anything until I actually went to nursing school, spent 13 months there. And then I had a job within like 3-4 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of close to what happened with me. Even though technically overall I have a bachelor's of science, but my emphasis is in organizational leadership and management. So it's basically a business degree. And I was actually like in the corporate America for a while, but then the last time that I ended up getting laid off and I was trying to, get another job and couldn't find one, and I ended up going back to a community college and getting a certification in community health, which I ended up landing a job in social services like within maybe a month or so after I finished the certification. And now I'm a medical caseworker.
I actually had a lot better experience in my community college than I did when I went to a university when I was younger. So I went to a university that didn't work out very well. Then I joined the military, and then when I got out of the military, I went back to school, but I went to a community college. And my experience there, as far as the instructors and the counselors and even the other students willing to help and reach out and kind of guide you and give you that space and information about what you want and what direction you want to go, it was a lot more personal. It seemed like they had more time. The classes were pretty small. The instructors would talk to you. You didn't have to deal with like TAs and stuff all the time. So I feel like, community college, even if you do end up going to get a 4-year degree, but it's very, very beneficial in my opinion to start there and kind of gauge where you at, even if you want to go to school. Because if you start with a 4-year degree and you drop out, you don't have a degree. But if you go to a 2-year college, get your associates, and then decide maybe I don't want to do the 4-year, you at least have that to fall back on. It's not much nowadays, but it's something.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it can open you up to a lot of different trade routes. That 2-year degree is can be useful. Yeah, you bet.
Well,
Yeah.
it teaches, if you go into the field of your degree, at least you yeah, maybe I do have a couple drinks, but it does teach you at least some baseline knowledge of your field, because you only do like a semester of general classes, and then you jump in to start doing your core classes because you don't have a lot of time. So it gives you a pretty good understanding of what type of things you might be getting into pretty quickly. So if you're going to change your major, what you want to get your associates in, it's not that costly, and you can kind of bounce around until you get somewhere where you're comfortable at and you want to be.
That's
Yeah,
true.
not that costly.
Well,
I think
relatively.
I went from $5,000 a quarter to $5,000 a credit, something like that. Was the
5,000.
jump? You know,
Wait.
Five-
How many?
1,000?
5,000?
maybe I'm being verbose, but it seemed like it was.
That's a lot.
I feel like you're making stuff up, Multi.
No, because I can tell you with I can't remember my undergrad, but with the degree I'm working on now, I know it's like about close to 1,000. I think it's roughly like $950 per credit for me right now.
Oh, that's the master's program.
Well, it's not my master's yet. It's
Yeah.
another degree in health education. Then I'm get my master's in public health, and then I'm gonna stop.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it maybe 500, but so
Okay.
no, I think I was.
500 sounds a bit more plausible.
Mhm.
I remember like my undergrad was like around $400 a credit, so
Right.
so to
Right.
speak.
No, I was just gonna say it was.
You don't want to join the after show if I'm drunk. I'm real loud and I'm real wrong.
It doesn't matter. That's all I remember.
It's funny.
It's too fun. No, wait. How did we get here? What were we talking about? We were talking about
Twitter, and then being wrong on the internet, and then associate's degree. Anyways, nothing to do with what we wanted to talk about.
Nothing at all.
What's the what did I walk in with? What
we're going to talk about Multi's sweater.
This is not a sweater. This
Multi has a turtleneck.
No, this is what is it? It's like a waffle.
A waffle.
Yeah,
You're wearing a waffle?
You're wearing a waffle now?
All right, I think Multi's already done. You're cut off. We gotta.
This is the first big snowstorm. It's snowmageddon going on right now, so I'm double layered with
that makes sense.
I got you.
It's like 10 degrees out here, and I have a t-shirt on.
Oh my gosh. I don't even want to check I don't even want to check the temperature. I just know it's cold.
I keep mine in Celsius, so I have no idea what the actual temperature is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I will. You torture yourself when I torture yourself. Yeah. It's a crisp 51 degrees out.
Oh, nice.
Hush, Jena. No one cares.
Cynthia, you're in the Chicago area, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
and it is.
I'm just south of Detroit, so we both get the lake weather. And it's not good.
No, it's not. And all I know is like when I looked outside, everything was white and from the snow. And I think that like I know I was cleaning earlier, so I got hot, so I turned down the air conditioner. I'm not the air conditioner. I mean the heater, the heat furnace. And now I regret those decisions. It's kind of chilly right now.
Heating blankets are your friend, folks.
They are, and I need to go ahead and give to big Amazon. You know how you got big pharma, now you got to give to big Amazon in order to
big delivery.
Big delivery. Big 2-day delivery.
I just got my paycheck today, and I was like, well, time to do some Amazon shopping.
I know that's right.
There's like constantly we get boxes delivered like almost every other day. Like between like I have the Prime account, so both my mom and my sister are connected to it. And then my mom's all ordering, okay, I'm gonna send that to my address. And then my sister's ordering, and I'm like, what the hell is in the cart? Can I move this so I can get my stuff in? It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. That's like our house too. Like there is literally a box or several packages coming practically
Several.
every day.
Several.
Several.
So I mean, it's just a wonder that we don't have like a national service for moving packages around the country already in place to be able
Oh
to take
wow.
things like that.
You know? Wow.
You can do
Yeah.
it, Multi. You
I
can do
can do
things.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to become a postman.
All
I got a
right.
bum knee.
Oh, there's rural postal workers, so you never have to get out of the truck.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. That's true.
Shoot.
Yep.
Hmm
Just mailbox.
Drive on the wrong side of the road all the time, or with the
Yeah.
wrong side of the car. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
thing.
They only
That's-
hire Europeans.
Gosh.
I can.
Anyways, Cynthia, you just
Yes,
recorded an episode of Nonprofits yesterday, which will premiere this Sunday.
I did.
You did.
Yeah.
It was a good recording. I won't spoil it, but it was a good recording. So everyone tune in this Sunday.
Yes.
Oh, you sit in the background watching?
Yes. I
Yes.
was peeping.
Yes.
Cynthia
Channel
does.
alert.
Yes, Cynthia does something. I'm not going to spoil it, but Cynthia does something very special.
I did
It's
a
good.
magic trick.
Yeah,
All
we'll call it that.
A magic trick.
Yeah.
I was like, where are we going with this?
Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's her little secret.
Yeah.
But besides the nonprofits and besides occasionally appearing on Neil's after shows, you also have a show of your own that you do with Sir Arthur.
Yes.
I miss that guy. I remember doing the last roundtable many moons ago. He's
Mhm.
hilarious.
Yes, he is.
He's hilarious.
Yes,
What?
my
Please.
boo. My boo. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I do a show called The 13%. And it is a show that talks about the socioeconomic and political position of Black folks in America, primarily that descend from chattel slavery, and so we oftentimes discuss issues and politics surrounding our particular group, and oftentimes try to do calls to action and getting more people politically educated and politically involved in order to help make them become more aware and to change things. So we are in the process of doing some rebranding with our channel, and so it's kind of on pause right now, but we're hoping that we can get back up and running. Hopefully, I would say, well, we're in February now, so I'm going to say, hopefully by March it will be back up and running, and so that we can get back to the to talking about these issues, especially now that we got a new administration, and there's a lot of legislation that's coming across Congress, and a lot of executive orders that have been signed already. And I know that, like, one of the things that as far as like political advocacy is concerned, like especially in the wake of a lot of the Black Lives Matter protest, and like a lot of the contention with, like, police, and even if we talk about like the position when it comes to so many Black Americans that are living in poverty and not adjacent to wealth, and needing an economic floor to change that, and really doing our best to impress that upon the president, the vice president, and Congress, because oftentimes we know that these things will not change without policy.
Right.
Even though that, Dr. King said that you can't legislate morality, but you can regulate behavior. And so, and regulation definitely comes with laws.
Yes.
and it's important to, you know, make people aware of those particular things in order for the laws, legislation
Mhm.
to come across the desk of the lawmakers and the
Right.
administrators in order for these things to change.
It's more than just signing those executive orders. It needs to
Yes.
be actual
Yes.
binding law for effective change.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think you're in a good spot, and activists are in a much better spot than they were 4 or 8 years ago, because we have very clear, precise examples of one person or a small group of people making a really big impact, especially with this election, and especially in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
where what?
Sarah Abrams. Sorry.
Yeah, Sarah, Stacey Abrams.
Oh
Stacey
shit.
Abrams.
Stacey
I'm thinking of
Abrams.
someone else. Sorry.
Yeah.
You were
So,
there.
but
Madam
I mean,
Abrams.
and everybody knows the name. It's a household name now, because
Yeah.
and now she's made it clear that one person with enough drive and effort can change an election. I mean, she single-handedly impacted the presidential election. She had a group, a whole organization, but she was the one that drove all that, and she's the face of it, and she's made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that and you can't teach that or tell somebody that, or you have to show them that, look, um, your activism, your contribution, your voice, it can make a difference,
Mm-hmm.
um, versus being apathetic or uninvolved in our political process. And it taught, you know, a lot of people that, you should be involved, and it's your responsibility as well as your right to be involved in the political process, because without her role in Georgia, Mitch McConnell would still be running Congress,
Mm-hmm.
and then we wouldn't even be talking about a $15 minimum wage. That wouldn't even be on the table.
Right.
We wouldn't be talking about a lot of things that are in the new relief packages or the new stuff coming forward. It would be sitting on his desk for the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a good spot to be in, as far as having good examples of people making big impacts.
Mm-hmm.
Where you know, you thought, you know, because in the beginning, you know, everybody knew Georgia votes red.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Everybody
true.
knew
Yeah.
everybody knew there was um voter suppression. There's no way to win. There's no way it's going to go blue. There's no way enough people were going to get the vote. No way enough people at Atlanta were going to get the vote. Everybody, these were facts as far
Mm-hmm.
as anybody was concerned. But she went against all of that, and changed the landscape there. Um, and these are things that you can point to and say, look, if she did it here, we can do it, you know, over here as
Yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know, and that is and that's very true as far as like it has to be a point where people get in their head that they are willing to put, you know, what I like to say, like hands to the plow, you
Mm.
know, and not necessarily just accept the status quo, like we're not going to get this, it's always this particular way, etc.,
Hmm.
etc. Like,
But
Right.
no.
that's what the incumbents want you to think. They
Mm-hmm.
want it to make it seem like there's no chance. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough name recognition.
Right.
You don't have you don't have the training. You don't have the family background. You don't have the connections and the networks. You don't have the lineage of, you know, a family that's been in politics for, you know, for 300 years or whatever.
Right. Right.
But you do have people that are first time politicians with no training, no education, no experience, but they're making big waves because they connect to people, you know, average people.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
I
That's
I
so
even
true.
so
think of like in the Senate race specifically in Georgia. I had a friend that actually ran in that race, not
mhm,
Warnock. It was her name is Tamara Johnson Shealy, and she ran
Mhm.
specifically on a platform for reparations,
Mm.
and even though she did not have a lot of money, but I believe she came in sixth in
mhm,
her
Wow.
race, you know, and one of the things that, you know, really even help her have a pretty good footing is that she went everywhere. Like her ground game was really strong. And
Mm-hmm.
I often wonder, like, even with that, if she just had, like, a few more people galvanized to really help her, maybe that could have, like, really pushed her, over the top. She told us that she got one more race in her, and I said, well, you know what, you next go round, even though I'm over here, I'm going to try to do my best to to help as much as possible, because getting people who share those values is important to go when it comes to sitting in those seats. And it doesn't necessarily take a whole lot of money. It just really takes the dedication, team, and as Maya said, like, it was a true movement. Like, it takes that, and oftentimes, like, it only takes, like, a critical mass. It don't take a whole lot of people. It just the right people who believe in change, and willing to do the work in order for that change to happen.
Has your friend ran for local positions?
Yes. Yeah.
And that didn't pan out either?
Well, I know that she ran for local positions before. She was actually, like, in a local race before she did the Senate. But the reason why she chose to do the Senate is because it was a special seat, and they had over, like, 21 people, I believe, at the foreground that actually ran. And so that particular race didn't need a whole bunch of votes per se. You just needed the right amount in order for you to to get to the runoff. And at that particular time, once the runoff came, it was, like, between Warnock and Loeffler. So
it's one of our first past the post. One thing that I've noticed here is, one, I keep on getting this little, hey, remember to check your mailbox because your democracy vouchers are in the mail. That's one thing that the Washington State has initiated, and my city has gone to ranked choice voting, and there is a House Bill 1156 has been introduced for this year's legislature, and is in the House. For that to go statewide, a ranked choice voting. So hopefully there's been a push, that's for sure. But then again, it's easy to get things on the ballot if there's public support. We definitely have a mechanism that is helpful for that. But then again, we also have people that have abused that system.
That's true. That's true. That is very true. But, again, I don't know. I try to stay hopeful in these particular instances. If you sometimes just kind of, like, lean to, like, the doom and the gloom, it will sometimes cause you not to do anything, right? But, like, I try to always, like, to have, like, an idea in my head about against all odds. Like, just because it seems to be difficult or improbable or even impossible doesn't necessarily mean it can't be achieved. So it just, like I said, just takes enough to do the work in order for that to transpire.
Right.
And, the thing that I've found interesting now that we've all gone remote is just sitting in on these council meetings that are all remote now. And it's just like, this is business going on. These are people talking with each other, making decisions about certain, it's not brain surgery. It seems like
these are like average ass people that was like a small business owner, had a little influence in the community, and then ran for the seat. And since only 20% of people or less vote for local politics, all you got to do is convince the people in your community to vote for you, and you're going to win. Yep. And then you build your platform out from there and start working your way up. But with enough drive and just making enough noise in your community and getting your name out there and being annoying about it and just putting up your own signs and flyers and shit. Anybody can win local politics with enough effort and a platform that resonates with the type of people that vote, or
Right.
just encouraging more people that do share your positions to vote.
Yep. I agree. Yeah,
and
all
then
politics is local.
Yep,
Yeah.
and local politics is what makes the changes that affects your day-to-day life. You
That's
know,
Yeah,
right.
it's the most
that's an,
immediate thing that can either benefit you sooner than later, or later if it's something that goes against, progressing that community. Because
Mhm.
I mean, we can all give a damn who the president is. Every 4 or 8 years, if they keep signing executive orders ruling out the latter person, things change over
Right.
yep,
time.
yep.
Right. They
Well,
do.
the on the federal level, the
Mm.
system is not necessarily by design, but it's pretty much designed to stay neutral or not change very quickly.
Mm.
That's what the checks and balances are, to prevent radical overnight change.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That's why it takes so many votes in the Senate to impeach. That's why it takes what is it 2/3 of the states to ratify a new amendment.
Mhm.
That's why it takes so many votes to get anything done, is to prevent quick change. They don't want
Mhm.
anybody changing the way the whole country works on a whim. On the
Mhm.
local level, however, your board of education, your city
City council.
your city council, your
Mhm.
mayor,
Yep.
Yeah.
the chief of police,
Oh yeah,
who
that's a
reports to the
big one.
mayor.
Mhm.
They dictate everything of your day to day. You
Judges.
know, yeah,
Mhm.
all the local judges,
Yep.
yeah, whether they're gonna let kids off their first speeding tickets or DUIs, or no registration and no insurance, and or if they're gonna throw them in prison every time and just hamper them for the rest of their life, or give them a
Mhm.
chance and set up quality rehab programs or informational programs to teach them to be responsible. That's all done at the local level.
Right.
Yeah.
The federal can guideline and prevent them from doing some things, but the federal government's not gonna give them a second chance when they screw up.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
all local, and
that's true. Yeah.
Well,
um,
I mean, I think I've lived in a city that has gotten better. I mean, we've definitely had to have federal oversight put on our police force, and it has been there for quite some time because of specific instances
Mhm.
of police violence. It just keeps on seem to happening. So,
Yeah. It will
but
continue,
yeah,
unfortunately.
but when I hear about, I hear things from the president of the police union, some of the things that they're saying, it's just very scary.
Yeah.
And that's not something that we have control over, and other than the city doesn't have control over. But like I
Yeah.
say, I think, I'm hoping that we're going to get more diverse voices with this stuff, with this ranked choice voting that we're instituting,
Mhm.
and moving money around to more social services, counselors, and negotiators and things like that, and
They
away
Yeah.
from having everything being just the cuffs and a gun.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know that, like, some people were very triggered by the hashtag, the slogan, and I had not had a drink today, of defund.
you want one?
Right. And I know, right?
Mhm.
But there's some wine around here somewhere. Uh, uh, but there a lot of people were triggered by hearing the words defund the police.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
but when you really look at what defund the police actually meant, like, I think of, like, Chicago, you know and how, like, oftentimes, like, the police departments are almost like mini armies.
Mhm.
And
Oh yeah.
and the thing about it is, they said, well, it's Chicago, they need to have that. I said, but to be honest, um where most of the when you even look at like the violence specifically in my city, it's mostly concentrated in, even though that they are mostly like concentrated in, Black communities and Latino communities, those communities are also very poor.
Right.
I think that the most violent neighborhood in Chicago is called West Garfield Park. It's on the west side of Chicago. It's predominantly African American. And I believe the last time I checked the statistics that it's 18% unemployed, and about almost half of the residents live under the federal poverty line.
And Chicago's, I just looked it up. Chicago's police department budget is around $1.8 billion
Yes, it is. Yes,
Annual?
Per
it is.
year?
annual.
Yeah.
Annual.
Yes, it is.
So
What the hell are you
Oh.
doing with that money?
Yeah, exactly. But most of it goes to salaries and pension, and also to cover the Fraternal Order of Police. And
Yeah.
and unfortunately, also they supposedly instituted an oversight, a citizens oversight panel, or to just kind of but it's not really like a board, a citizens oversight board that is as powerful as it should be, unfortunately. And as long as like qualified immunity, I believe in Chicago, especially with the police, is like on steroids.
Yeah.
And I mean, like it took so long for that one dude. God, what is that guy's name? I want to call him Burgess, but I'm not completely sure. But there was like a whole issue for I want to say almost like 20 to 30 years that this one of the chief of police actually would torture mostly Black and Latino people that they would arrest into confessing into crimes that they did not commit, and having these crazy sentences. And matter of fact, found the whole area where they would basically get tortured into these confessions. And they just like maybe like a few years ago actually got like recompense for a lot of those people who've been affected by that. But unfortunately, like those particular practices are embedded in the police culture. And if you feel that you can get away with it, if you feel like that this is the way that we police, it's basically like we torture people into confessing, we torture people into doing saying that they did things that they didn't do, and we just over police like impoverished areas that happen to look mostly like me, then that's what they're going to do. And especially if there's no accountability for it. And matter of fact, I had a chart of the latest budget that went out for the city of Chicago, and it's atrocious. Still dumping money, into like the especially into the police. And I'm not saying that police should not be funded. I believe that they should, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be to the tune where we are taking away from services that are absolutely needed in order to combat a lot of the issues that these communities are facing.
Right. Or giving that money to militarize them.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what these particular communities don't need. They don't need to be over militarized. They don't need to be over policed. They need resources.
Right.
And it's kind of interesting, especially like in Chicago, like there is, a lot of these sides of the cities look the same as far as like the housing is concerned, but the amenities and the resources and how even children are schooled are completely different depending on who is in those zip codes,
Yep.
and it's kind of like, okay, if I'm paying property taxes versus another person is paying property taxes, yet my school is shitty versus somebody else's school who's like got all this immaculate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you expect to come out of those particular communities? I know that like a part of the advocacy group that that I work with, and specifically in our city, we've been trying to press our governor to sign an executive order to release rapid relief in our communities that have been ravaged by COVID, and also to sign into law violence as a public health crisis, so that we can actually get resources into these neighborhoods that have been ravaged, by said, events. And he's basically been ignoring us. And and so we decided to do a mini press conference in front of his house. And yes,
that was videoed, right?
Yes, it was.
I think I saw that. Yes,
yes,
I did
it was.
Yep.
Yes, we did.
I saw that.
And the people, and because our governor lives in Chicago, and he lives in a very lovely neighborhood, with very rich people who happen to be white, the majority of them. And they decided to call the cops on us. And it was only 3 of us. And almost 7 to 8 cops came out for the 3 of us.
Wow.
And so we decided to have a whole conversation on live with said cops. And bless my lovely partner's heart, but he told them, because like he said, the reason why we're here is because our neighborhoods are under resourced. And if you look at these particular houses versus looking at houses that are predominantly Black, I'm sorry, communities that are predominantly Black, they're the same. But when I look at your streets, they're cleaner. I look that you have grocery stores that's in walking distance. For fuck's sake, you're 2 blocks from a huge ass park that has a zoo in it.
Damn zoo.
A damn zoo. Okay. So
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so again, the only thing, and so he said to one of the cops, he said, to be honest with you, if you actually sign the executive order and release these particular funds into Black households, the majority of them, they're not going to move to white neighborhoods. And then the cop was like, well, why not? He was really offended. And I was like, Exhibit A. I said, we're coming here as citizens, which we all voted for this man. Matter of fact, he got 98% of the Black vote in Illinois.
Wow.
And we want something for our vote. We vote for you, you do something for us. And now you're just ignoring us. I mean, what do you expect? And then, and especially if we're making a demand for the vote that we gave to him, we have the absolute right to implore him any way that we can.
Right.
And we should not have a gaggle of police people come down on us. We are professionals. We work for a living. We are taxpayers, and this is how we're treated just because we want something for our vote. Are you serious? And
we're coming to you to demand the service that we elected you to do.
Exactly. And if this is an encounter just because we're coming here, why would we want to live by? Why would we even want to put ourselves in that particular predicament in the first place in order for us to be marginalized even more just because we want something for our vote? Are you serious? No.
Right.
So yeah, that was fun. And
yeah, I mean,
great way to spend your Saturday. I'm
sure it
was. How do you figure out, how do you design a role? How do you get a badge that lets you in the door on that 9 to 5 business hours so you can bring this in front of him? I mean, to think that you were so unable or felt so blocked to be able to actually talk to this person in their office, that there's so many hurdles in the way that you had to go out on a Saturday in front of his house, means that there is just a complete there's just inaccessible and unaccountable.
Exactly Malty. And it wasn't like that us as a group have not been emailing and calling his office. We have been doing it for months. We've done several press conferences about this executive order. Matter of fact, it was a huge, really horrible shooting this past summer in a predominantly Black neighborhood, where I believe it was outside of a funeral home. And it was like, and I believe that I think that 14 people got shot and or killed. At least about four, I know, that got shot. And so we arranged a demonstration, again, pushing for this executive order, and for this signing of, making public violence a public health crisis, because, like, the only thing that I see differently in any of these particular neighborhoods is, again, um, when you don't have resources, the crime ends up going up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and this
You
is
get
something.
desperate.
Yeah, you
Well,
do.
and they can't say that it's a culture thing
Hmm.
or that it's primarily a race thing, because in Detroit, and I'm sure it's the same in Chicago, people that have made enough money and they were put their kids through college and they found themselves well off and they moved to the suburbs, and then they've created these pockets of minority neighborhoods in the suburbs. There's virtually no crime.
Yeah.
They're just quiet neighborhoods. They stick to themselves. They stay out of trouble. But the neighborhoods that they came from are crime ridden.
Hmm.
Um,
Because
and
they're
it's
under-resourced. Yep.
right. And I
Desperation.
mean, and we all know, or we should know, we don't all know that crime is not driven by poverty necessarily. It's driven by income inequality. It's when you have, it's like you were saying with the school system, and one of the big divides that they've created recently with the school systems is that they've pitted public schools against charter schools and private schools.
Hmm.
So they can argue that, oh, our public schools are still getting the same amount of money across the board, every school, $6,000, $7,000, whatever per student. I have no idea how much it is now, but the affluent families are sending their children to charter schools and private schools. Whereas if you can't afford that, then you don't have school of choice. You don't have vouchers to go to a better school, so they can live in the same city, but they're getting better education.
Hmm.
And some of these, and then you have people like Betsy DeVos said is perfectly fine with shuffling your public education money into these other schools
That's right.
and to offset some
Wow.
of the cost and to provide even better education offset. So
Yeah.
it's that type of inequality where the people, you get into a mindset of you don't have other options, you don't have a choice, you don't have a future, and that's where the ideas and temptation of um, criminal behavior sets in. And, if everybody thought that they had a bright future and job opportunities and a political career and everything was awesome, there wouldn't be nearly as much crime. Or
No.
Exactly.
if everybody felt like their neighbors next door and across town and in the next city over was in the same situation, suffering the uh, same type of success, same opportunities, there wouldn't be the same temptations. It's when it's
Hmm.
that high levels of inequality in a relatively small area is what drives that. Because you
Hmm.
have very poor neighborhoods, very poor counties, countries, states, where you don't see the same levels of crime. It's where you're talking about where, because it's in Detroit too, where the mayor will live in $1 million mansion and a half a mile away from there, these houses are worth 5 to 15 grand a piece, and and the cops only worry about it when they have to,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
or when they're called to go to stop violence by being even more violent.
Hmm.
That's the only time they step in. Um,
Hmm.
but it's that inequality is what drives, I think, most of that.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it definitely is a big driver. But but one of the things that also, even to your point concerning, like, this is not necessarily a cultural or a race issue. I mean, it's turned into that, right?
Hmm.
Because of, the communities that happen to be like witness these inferences the
Yeah.
most.
Yep.
Um
I had a sorry to cut you off. I had a big conversation about this to one of my
mm,
friends that lives in Philadelphia. So he
mhm,
grew up in Philly, So he had an experience of very similar to any other big city, where it felt like when you're on the inside and you're part of the community, you live with the minorities and you live in the crime high crime areas, it feels more like a class warfare where the rich people from the suburbs are taking all the resources and you're part of the group that has less resources. But when you step outside of that and you look at the history and you look at why and how people are where they are now, um, you you start to understand that it's racial and other issues that put these people in the position to where, um, even if it is just class warfare now, it was it didn't start that way, and that problems are definitely exacerbated by it for some groups of people because of, centuries of blatant racism and
Right.
and shuffling and
Hmm.
funneling minorities into these cities and these neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, like, to your point, like a great example of that racist policies that have been a huge contributor to economic plunder is redlining.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
something we talk about all the time, or I
yeah,
talk about all the time.
yeah,
Um,
and the crazy thing about it is that even though the redlining was considered outlawed, it's still practiced to this day.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
because like those practices have been institutionalized.
Yeah, I mean, because there's money over time. There's generational money,
Hmm.
and there's property that develops and keeps on funneling down to that gives a certain minority or a certain group of people
Yeah.
a a buoying effect,
Right.
a support that the
Yes.
rest of everybody doesn't have.
mhm.
Correct. And
Uh,
we already know that the majority of people who are wealthy in the United States, about 60, I want to say last time I checked, about 60% of them inherited their wealth. They
Yeah.
didn't work for it.
Mhm.
And yeah. So I know that, like, and even like when I'm to the point I was making before concerning, like, this is not, and this is not something that hasn't not been seen before, as far as like, high crime versus, under resourced neighborhoods. I mean, y'all remember what happened during prohibition, right?
no, I wasn't around then. Almost, but
I saw a movie.
saw a
There you
movie.
go. I read about it.
So
Yeah.
who do we
I
got?
mean, but like, the majority of people who were funneling, like, that underground market of bootlegging were oftentimes like people who were from Eastern European backgrounds.
Hmm.
I believe, like, in like a big part of it was like Italian groups, Jewish groups, and also Irish groups, and some Slavic groups too, Polish groups as well, that were very much so a part of this, underground market, and also to protect, like that turf warfare type thing, like that gang type related thing,
Right.
oftentimes clash with one another to protect their territory. So, like, I mean, like Al Capone, in the Valentine's Day massacre.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the most bloodiest, days,
Yeah.
and it was all driven for concerning economics, and at that particular time, that I believe, the Italians were looked on very poorly. It was there's a couple of books that I'm still getting through. But when affirmative action became white, and when the Irish became white,
Hmm.
and I also love this other public health professor. Her name is Dr. Linda Perry from UIC. I need to actually take her courses, but she always talks about how, depending on what time that they were in, would determine who is considered white. And white
Mhm.
Oh
is,
yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
white has nothing to do with absence of melanin. It has everything to do with what group is considered, who we can let into being normal. You
Yeah,
know.
we've talked about that a lot early on in
Mhm.
the show.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to me to think about because I have a lot of like Irish and Scottish or something background, but like you said, there's people that came over that looked very similar to the people that lived here, but they were not accepted as being white,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And now we've moved along to where as long as you look close enough to me, we're going to be on the same side because that's the only way we have a majority in numbers and we can be a one big voting block now.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not the reason, but
So it's the red hat. That's the signal then, instead of the color or the skin, slant of the eye, or texture of the hair.
The red
It's
hat now.
Yeah, it's the red hat. Yeah, I mean, but it's always going to be that time frame that like as soon as like a group of people is accepted into normalcy or
yep.
able to access what normalcy means, then oftentimes like what is an area that they may be in, or even like even when it comes to even crime, it happens to become less and less. You know, and one of the things that we've been saying is that racism is definitely a hierarchy of white supremacy. And again, this has very little to do with who has melanin and who does not. It has everything to do with where certain groups have asserted itself in this particular caste system, because that's exactly what it is. And but it's oftentimes if you can break the system, then groups of people are going to be able to have access to normalcy, and we don't necessarily have to fight over resources because they're there.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, like it shouldn't be like I even remember, like, I went to Catholic school when I was in elementary and in high school, and I remember one time I was doing homework with a girlfriend of mine who lived a few doors down from me. She went to a local public school, of course, and I went to a Catholic school that was not necessarily far from my home. But our homework in math class was extremely different, and I remember my homework was hell a lot harder. We had to grab a couple of her brothers to kind of help me out, but when it came to like, her homework, it was not, I was like, wow, that's a huge difference. And I mean, and even though like, my girlfriend, she's doing pretty well for herself now, but at the same time, like I thought it was like very telling, even when it comes to curriculum versus a person who pays for school versus like for school that should be provided because her parents owned their home and they were taxpayers and property tax actually funded schools. What was available even as far as like curriculum is concerned,
Yep.
And so like all those particular things are just so telling. I even think of like I have another girlfriend who was very sad that she had to take her son out of this Montessori school because the tuition was like college, and
Ridiculous.
yeah, but like the school as far as like their curriculum and how they're related to students and how well the students do, and go and how advance, especially as they go in higher grades and even like go into other higher education, they do pretty well because they have a good foundation. But it's crazy again that you're paying like just the tuition is like more than like a private institution at a college,
Right.
in order for your kid to get like a proper education so that they can adjust better as they go along. And I'm like, okay, but any of these particular tactics that they're utilizing in order for them to teach these kids, they're not new, they just work. And why isn't this something that's available even in other schools for everyone? Yeah.
That's the reason right there. Because I mean, you kind of said it, is to give these kids you almost said the edge up, but I think that's what it is. That's why you go to the Montessori school, is because you want your kid to be able to outperform those that didn't have that extra money.
Well, yeah, that's the goal, right? I mean, you know that they're going to get a better education. You know they're going to be safer. You know they're going to have more one-on-one time with the teachers. You know they're going to be better classes. You know the food is going to be better. The extracurricular activities is going to be better. The post-school opportunities are going to be better, because it's not just that. I went to high school in Detroit Public Schools. I dated a girl that went to Berkeley Public Schools, which is a suburb of Detroit. And if you talk to the acceptance people at the colleges, the Detroit Public Schools on average, a 4.0 at one of the suburban schools, or no, you'd have to get a 4 point something higher than a 4.0 to be equivalent to like a 2.8 or lower at the suburban schools, because the standards of education were so radically different. Because they know that even if you do as good as you possibly can, learning everything every teacher teaches you, you're still not even getting close to what was available at other schools.
That's true.
And so your post high school opportunities are radically different, because these college and whoever else acceptance committees, they look at your transcripts and they know where you came from, and they know what they've seen come through their program with the same education that you have, and it's going to be different. And so there's a lot of reasons that go into it, and a lot of benefits.
Do you have any wealthy people in your states? I mean, I'm just looking at this proposed wealth tax. That,
I mean, everybody has wealthy people in their state.
Yeah,
well, yeah, but I mean, there's wealthy people, and then I'm not bragging. It's not a brag thing. I'm just saying that we are looking at a wealth tax. So we're looking at 1% of any wealth over $1 billion held by somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Don't take my million.
We had a fair tax proposal here in Illinois. And I tell you, there was a specific Illinois conservative group that went hella ham to actually get this, to get the fair tax scrubbed. And they succeeded.
Blocked it.
Yeah, they blocked. Yeah, they
If you use it to
succeeded.
buy missiles, they would have been all for it.
Yeah, I know.
And
Damn, that's what they should have put that on there. Like
bombs and army tanks.
Exactly.
So they're saying the estimate for 2023 would be 2.25 billion for the state, and 2.2 and 2.5 billion in 2024. Jeff Bezos could fucking deal with it. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm right. Exactly.
I think Bill and Melinda give away that much. I mean, that's what their whole institute does, right?
Look, he had to step down from Amazon so he can build rockets. Okay, he's going through a rough transition.
Poor thing.
The whole symbolism of that proudly standing rocket.
Yeah, you're not a real man. You're not a real billionaire now unless you build rockets.
Right.
Well,
and build rockets and prepare yourself to go to the moon on a vacation. The fuck? Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, like, I remember, and the thing about it is that because they voted down the fair tax. I know the city of Chicago, or our county increased property tax, and including and it was across the board. Even though they said, well, if your house was like worth like at least about $250 or more or whatever, but if your house was worth $250,000 or more, your tax would be more. But regardless, if you own property, you got a property tax hike. And so, like, for people who are barely holding on to their homes, you know, or even like did like the damn thing and actually paid their houses off, you know, and so, and like their house is like their nest egg or whatever,
Right.
you know, even if they're, but if they're like income, if they're like retired and if they don't necessarily have like if they're only living like on social security and maybe even a small pension, I mean, what do they do? And
Yeah.
I even remember, like, you know, my mom, she paid her house off, but she lives on social security and a small pension. And I don't know how many times we had ran down to the damn city hall to continuously get the stupid senior freeze, you know, and just so that like you don't have to do something like, you know, have like a property tax that's so astronomical that you can't afford it and you have to leave your home. I mean, especially like when you work so hard all your life to pay off your home. To me, that's like a hella feat, especially like, you know, when you necessarily didn't like have it like that. But you know, if you're able to do something like that, kudos to you. But at the same time, your government should not be in the habit of sticking it to you because you are a person that's under, you know, that's like of a lower income or even like or assets or anything like that. Like, you
Right.
know, it's not fair at all that, you know, you can be a millionaire, billionaire and be able to, you know, have so many different breaks given to you because of it.
Right.
But you totally can afford, you know what I'm saying, to be able to pay a better tax or a higher tax or what have you in order to keep like your state and your local and even your federal government going. Like, and I mean, and to be honest, like for me, I don't even think that billionaires should exist. Like, no, there should be no billionaires. I mean that.
There are
I
there
wanna.
are places in Europe where if you get a taxed 100% above a certain amount of income.
I want to. So Stidic said that. He says, I have issues with how to transition from the status quo to significant differences in tax code, and then he says they got to these places by playing the rules in the current system, but that's not true, right? Because
Yeah,
the system changes
all
all
the
the
time.
time.
All the
The
time,
the
yeah.
nom, you know,
It's
the top effective tax rate or nominal, you know, whatever the term is, changes all the time. And when we're talking about generational wealth and we're talking about people that were handed businesses or handed $10 million or handed these things to start their empires,
the
a lot of these,
family that owns the Walmart
Mm-hmm.
had to have enough money to put that satellite up there so they could do this just in time tracking of all of their data and all of their warehousing to be able to make that huge empire what it is. I
yeah.
mean,
So
the
back in the 80s, the top tax rate was like 70%, and we still minted millionaires all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, and the tax, you know, the top rate has basically decreased ever since, and it's significantly lower now than it was. So, you know, it changes. It goes up and down all the time. You can't argue that it's just been this way and this is where they made all of their money, because that's not even
yeah, I mean,
a thing that anyone can say.
Well, I will say this: even when you say they got it by playing by the rules in the current system, that's a problem.
Hmm.
That's a problem. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like if the rules in the current system allow, you know, for that for one to be able to utilize them in order to enrich themselves to the point where there's such like a big chasm between a have and a have not, that's an issue.
Yeah, you
I
have
think
people that
yeah.
like Trump that ran on fixing loopholes in the
Yeah.
economic business system and did absolutely nothing to. I mean, he bragged about it, right?
Yeah.
He said, "I'm as rich as I am because I exploited the loopholes in the system, but
That's
I'm
right.
here to fix those." And then he never talked about it again. But
And he never fixed them.
yeah,
oh,
but
I'd say it's
He wasn't going
go the
to.
there's
opposite
a
direction.
handful of
Right.
billionaires that will tell you straight up, I'm only here because the system is unfair. I found the you know, the loopholes. I exploited it, and I got to where I'm at, and it's unfair to other people that I was able to do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, there's no just suddenly, right? We can't even increase the minimum wage suddenly. If it goes to $15 an hour, it's going to be over like 4 years or 5
Oh
years.
yeah, it's gonna take
Yeah.
quite a while.
About
There's,
it's gonna I think that they said it's probably going to be like another like 4 to 5 years before they
so
even get to 15.
most of the
So-
plans that we enact are over several years, and it does give people time to adjust to these changes.
Then I mean, if it's but in specific situations, if a $4 an hour hike for essential workers, i.e., retail grocery workers in an entire area is authorized, I found it interesting to watch this play out in my region, in that it first went in the city, and now it's the entire region, where all of the union and non-union groceries have all come on board with this. Mostly, I mean,
Mhm.
a few of the small ones haven't, but I mean, during this time, it's just like it's a difficult job to yeah, it's hard to find people, I
You
guess, but
you
yeah.
you all know who Representative Cori Bush is? I want to say that she's from Missouri.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. She was elected last summer. Was it Jena? Was
Was it
it?
last summer or the last cycle?
Yeah.
No, you're right. Last summer.
Yeah, last
Last
summer. I think
Yeah.
that she won through special election. Well, she
Yes.
was on.
You're right.
She was on Trevor Noah. I just watched her.
Yeah.
Very recently.
I
Yeah,
haven't. Oh, it's in my feed. I have to watch
yeah.
it.
But so like she was asked about the $15 an hour
Oh, okay.
wage
Yeah.
hike, and talking about like some of the conservative arguments against it. um and one of the things that she said that was very interesting is that when we have seen, like, some people were always talking about that if you raise, like, if you put this mandate to raise wages for workers, then it's going to be the killer of small business. But what they have found with businesses that have increased wages for their workers is that oftentimes people are happier, they are
Mhm.
more productive, and actually, because they're more productive, they're invested in the organization that they are working for. And the
Right.
overall, the work of the organization itself does better. And when it
Mhm.
does better, it's more profitable to continue to sustain said wages. So, and the thing about it is, especially like for America, which is like the richest country in the damn globe, we have the wherewithal to prop up our small businesses too, in order for them to be able to make this work.
Well, we don't need that. We don't
Mm.
need external support to prop them up, because I live in a smaller town now, 25,000 people. If you increase wages across the board of everybody, say a lot of small businesses have restaurants, or whatever it might be. So you have 5 people working and they're making $10 an hour. You increase it to 15. That does increase your cost, and so you raise your prices. But now that everybody in the city, thousands of people, are making more money, they can afford those slightly raised costs to
Yeah,
offset your wage increase.
right.
I'm gonna share something here from my friend James on Facebook that that kind of highlights this. It's a thing about McDonald's, so it's not necessarily applicable to small business, but it tells you, if you increase minimum wage across the board, and then you raise your cost to offset it, the offset doesn't even come close to what you're gaining from your employees. Um, so in 2020, McDonald's has 1.7 million employees, which is a poster child for minimum wage job. It's a huge employer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their earnings is 1.6 billion. Is that, yeah, 1.6 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about
Um,
right.
so it just depends. There's a lot goes into it, so it's really complicated. But he says, assume for the purpose of this math experiment that all 1.7 million employees make minimum wage. We know it's not true. Some are a little more, not a lot. So if you go, and this is the biggest jump. So this is going from minimum wage to 15. So this is worst case scenario. Increase the wages by $12,750,000. $12,750,000 of increased wages versus their $1.6 billion in income.
Mm-hmm.
And to offset this cost, they would have to raise prices by 0.8%. So basically, the idea of taking 1.7 million people out of poverty, or getting closer to being out of poverty, and raising the cost by 0.8% is what would be the outcome of that.
Mm-hmm.
You would easily earn all that money back and then some on all your social safety nets and welfare programs that these people don't have to buy into, because they're able to afford more. Now, $15 an hour is not enough.
No, it
I
is
mean,
not.
don't get me wrong; it's not a living wage.
No, it is not.
I would be homeless if I made $15 an hour.
Most of us will.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah.
it's still significantly more than what a lot of people are making. But less than 1% increased costs to offset that wage increase at its worst case scenario is 100% worth it every time on what you're going to get back as a society or a community as a whole. And then all these people have more money to pump into the economy. They're not going to save it. They're not going to buy stocks and bonds and investments and overseas bank accounts and
Oh my goodness, they
Lexus.
couldn't afford that.
No, they're gonna go out and they're gonna buy food. They might get car insurance if they don't already have it, because the cost is astronomical all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna buy clothes. They're gonna pay their rent on time. It's all gonna be dumped back in their local economy, and it's gonna boost up the floor of that whole neighborhood, that whole area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, pay your people, and it will be better for everyone involved.
But like you said, the argument is that if we raise wages, small businesses are going to go out of business. But I mean,
That's not
one,
true.
if you can't survive paying your employees $15 an hour, you don't deserve to be in business, right? Because you're exploiting your workers, you're forcing them to either not have a job or live in poverty. Those are their two options, and just so that you can be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Right.
maybe what you're doing is not lucrative or profitable enough, or you're not doing it well enough to compete, or there's no market for it.
Well, to that particular point, when I was even talking about like government assistance when it comes to business, I mean, even if you look at like minority business owners, I mean, like over 80% of those particular, business owners, just one person is the employee, and that's the business owner. So oftentimes, like, in order for any of these things to work, it does have to be I would call like a simpatico uh, um, relationship between government and constituent, especially to help like prop up the economy, to make it a more even playing field for for business owners who happen to be considered small.
Do you mean people that like they're self-employed pretty much?
Yeah, they're
Their own
self-employed.
one-person business.
Yeah, they're on
Okay.
their business, and a majority of minority-owned business, especially Black-owned businesses.
Yeah, and
the majority of them are just one. Their
there's
the employee is just them.
technically no floor on their wages, because they just get whatever's left over after.
Correct,
their
after their
bill.
expenses, exactly. Yeah. So like, if in order for that to even be like a thing, if they wanted to expand so that they can employ people, and if they want to be able to pay them the actual wage, that definitely should be something like an economic plan that can help these particular businesses be able to do that. Just think about like what happened with the PPP loans, with the first CARES Act.
Yep.
And how the majority of that money went to...
They gutted the entire regulation aspect of that. They
Yeah,
ripped
they
it out
did.
and threw it away and said, we're not going to we're going to set these rules and these boundaries, but never bother to make sure they're being followed.
Exactly. And the majority of the businesses that ended up getting that particular money were businesses that did not need that money. And I would last time I checked that during COVID, 41% of Black businesses went out of business.
Oof. Wow.
That's
Yeah, it's
a
rough.
lot. That's a
And
lot. And
and
yeah.
I was gonna say I work in Detroit a lot, and I grew up in Detroit, and there's neighborhoods that were already ravaged
Yeah.
by the economy beforehand. You can
Yep.
drive down 7 Mile or McNichols or Finkel or Joy Road where there's miles of strips where there's buildings there, and they have words on them, but they haven't even been opened in years, and now they're all closed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hmm.
I was in Detroit in 2018. I have a friend who owns a comic line, and he does he was, before COVID happened, doing a independent comic creator con called Motor City Black Age of Comics Con, and I would come and
Okay.
host it. It was really cool. And I remember, and since it was like in Detroit, like they hosted the Comic Con at Wayne State University.
That's where one of my major projects is right now. I'm
Oh,
down there
nice.
every day.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Very nice. Yeah. It was a beautiful campus. Very nice buildings and things of that
Yeah.
nature. I love the
Yeah,
Starbucks was on point.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm commissioning an engineering building right next to the science center there.
yeah, and there's a lot of building last time that I was there that's going on at Wayne State University.
The it's kind of a tangent, but hospitals and universities are nonstop expanding. They have to. They don't have a choice. They get
Mhm.
so much money, so much funding and endowment and money from the government that they don't know what else to do with it. So instead of paying their employees more, they
I just build more.
they expand, they build more.
Yeah.
They bring in more administrators and they
Mhm.
build shit. That's what they do.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's kind of
Yeah.
like the school that's not that my mom used to work at. So it was a school and a hospital, University of Chicago, and that's all they did. They
Yeah, they
are like
can't
a
they can't lower
whole.
costs or pay people more, but they can build shit all
Oh
day.
yeah, every
It-
time I passed
makes
by
sense.
that particular campus, it was always building. But what I was going to say is, like, when I was there, it was just so it was kind of disheartening to see how again, like, a lot of these predominantly minority, especially like Black neighborhoods were boarded up houses, completely, gosh, it was horrible to see. I
There's
mean, and
there's
and the
parts of
crazy.
the Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, and I was just thinking, like, and I remember, like, reading about how, like, those a lot of people that are in those areas came from the generations of the Great Migration that happened from
Mhm.
the south to the north, and a lot of people who were living in those areas were coming because of promises of jobs. And of course, Detroit, Motown, like most people, worked at for the auto industry. But when the auto industry started to move their plants to different areas and overseas and all this other stuff, I mean, that devastated those neighborhoods, and because it basically took away a means that the people were utilizing in order to to actually support their life,
Hmm.
and now it's gone, even, and it was just sad to see. But unfortunately, that was basically like a copy of what happened to a lot of folks that came from the south to the north who were working these particular jobs. I think of, like, I remember, like, specifically in Chicago, not too far from where I live, you had the neighborhood that I live in right now, that's predominantly African American, used to be predominantly Jewish and Polish. And after the Fair Housing Act of 1968 was signed, about 3 to 4 years later, it went from Jewish to Polish to Black. and because it was a great white flight.
Mhm.
But a lot of those people who purchased homes here that were Black were working at the steel mill,
Mm.
making very good wages. But what ended up happening with a lot of those housings and things of that nature that were around the steel mill went down when the steel mill closed.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So again, devastating actual neighborhoods because people are no longer able to like make the wages that they were making previously in order for them to be able to, live.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened throughout all of Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, the exact same thing happened. There
Mhm.
were Polish and other communities that they built these giant factories in them. They were doing really well, and when the factories closed, 15 it would take 15,000 jobs with it.
Yep.
It would destroy a whole section of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and the housing value would tank. People would move out, and then poor people would move in, and it just ravaged. There's parts of the city that you would if somebody told you that race riots happened yesterday, you would believe it, because it
Mm.
looks like it hasn't been touched or cleaned up or improved in any
Long
sense
time.
since the
Well,
60s.
so where are the iron mines that those steel mills were pulling from? Were they close? I mean, was that the problem, or was it just the steel production moved over to China?
A lot of it was moved off to China. They actually, like, not too far in the suburbs in Chicago, we had quarries. And oftentimes, like, there's a river that's not too far from the old steel mill. It's still in use today. It's called the Calumet River, where they had like a lot of barges that would bring in materials in order for them to be processed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of shipping yards not too far from the steel mill that I would actually bring in material to be processed. So yeah, but yeah, that's what basically happened. Like
But
a lot of that
it's
steel went overseas.
yeah, okay, but it's a steel mill. Or it's a steel foundry. I mean, what are they doing? Are they taking old steel and making new things? Are they
All right,
taking?
Monty, this might be a little too technical.
I'm
Yeah,
just
I'm about to
wondering what
say
they did there. I'm just wondering. Sorry,
it
sorry.
was a steel mill,
Okay,
multi. That's
okay,
all
I
I
got you. That's all you know. Sorry.
But that's it's
I
the
never
same thing
worked there.
it's the same thing that happened in Detroit and all the northern big cities. Big promises of, oh, we don't rely on agriculture and slave labor and field work. We're a big automation, manufacturing, good union jobs, and
Mhm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the unions had their part in it as well. So unions are good, but unions are only as good as the jobs that are there to
That's
have
right.
to be unionized.
That's
When
right.
Exactly.
the union workers are
Exactly.
making $40 an hour, and then the whole plant closes and ships the entire plant to Mexico or Canada or overseas,
Yeah.
the union isn't any good anymore.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
it's
You're just the de facto union.
Right.
Yeah, so it's good, and then they've done great over time, and they've made a lot. They've made a huge improvement in our home, work home quality and um, labor laws and all kinds of stuff. Um, but but when the unions get too greedy and they get too much power, they will drive a business into the ground, and or convince the corporation, who at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the corporation still has all the money, or the the resources. They just ship it to somewhere else and find different labor.
Well, I'd
um,
like to see what 'cause I have no idea how the balance seems to be able to work in some other parts of the world where
Hmm.
there are strong unions, yet there are strong regulations controlling them, and the companies that
well, that's not
they're
where we
working.
send jobs, though. We don't send jobs to Sweden or Finland or Germany. We send jobs to the Philippines and Taiwan and Mexico,
Where
um,
they can exploit their labor,
because
not
they
necessarily pay them any type of
Well,
living
yeah, okay,
wage and
okay,
things of
because
yeah
that nature.
we
Yeah.
we
don't, yeah.
can't we don't pay our people. enough to be able to buy high enough quality products that would be made by people who are not
Exactly.
being
It's
exploited.
self-reinforcing.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
same people complaining that all of our jobs are being sent overseas are the ones that shop at Walmart. You know what I
Right.
mean? Every day they make weekly trips to Walmart to buy shit that's cheap, and
Yeah.
then they complain that it's not American made, and then they
Hmm.
also complain that the prices are going up.
Mm.
You can't win.
Capitalism, people.
I
Capitalism.
want to win though, but I want to win.
Winning.
Winning.
Gosh. This is why you let
Tremendous.
Cynthia McDonald rant. She learned you.
Mhm.
That is that's my corner of the interwebs, is the corner of the interwebs that I happen to occupy is the rant one.
Hmm.
I love it.
Thanks. That,
Mhm.
I get on there after about 3 or 4 drinks in. I can start keeping up.
well, usually like my rant comes with red wine, but I don't have any out right now. Usually like, on some of the streams I try to, like, especially like if we have like a guided conversation, to be as sober as possible. After parties, nope. No
Yeah,
holds bars.
we had a topic for today, and we didn't
We
even come near
did.
it.
Sure did. I read a description and I thought that, I said, oh, there's going to be topics. I'm going to be, the only
No.
libation I will have is my water, my H2O, so that I can be as even minded as possible to discuss said topic of, yes, Maya.
That's your solo show. It's called The Rant.
Yes.
There you go.
There should be a show called The Rant. I'm pretty sure that there is a show called The Rant.
Well, you can call it The Rant with Cynthia McDonald. It's the
There we
original
go.
name.
Yes,
That's
like
better.
yes,
That's better.
that would be gooder. I may even do that, like, just a weekly show where I'm just ranting about some shit.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that's because me and Jenna have talked about that, because we do our show and then we kind of pop in here and there and other things. But there's nothing wrong with giving like a 10 or 15 minute. This is what's on my mind today. These are the things that I've been thinking about. I'm just gonna put them out there. Maybe some minor editing, maybe not. And then just it's just there. It doesn't have to be super professional, super big deal, but there's nothing wrong with doing like a solo thing of just getting your thoughts out there. It's the same as writing a blog or an essay, journal or whatever.
Right.
Just get your thoughts out.
But my blogs tend to be a bit, source heavy and focused and thoughtful, like,
Yeah, that's yeah.
Oh.
Well, we
I
need
don't
that,
rant
right?
on my blogs. I like
We
to
need
actually-
that, because when we're arguing online and we want to reference a quality source, those are the things that we point to that have already done all the work for us.
Exactly.
Mhm. Thank you,
we
Cynthia.
need those professional things with citations and articles, and you've already looked this up. You've done all the work. I just got to
Right.
post a link.
Exactly.
Right.
And I
So
say,
those are
you
good
are-
too.
Yes, like I said, you are wrong and this is why. Link.
Yeah, exactly.
That was literally my last argument that was on Twitter. Like, I was literally pointing to resources on why this person was wrong about the argument that they were pushing. The argument, if you guys are wondering, was about Black buying power. And how, if he was comparing the person about Black buying power being thought of as GDP for an autonomous country. I'm paraphrasing, but the problem with your argument, and this is the foundational problem of that argument, is that Black people in America are not in an autonomous country. We're not,
Yeah.
so often, so like, and so you can't compare our income or even what we spend concerning GDP of an autonomous country to, how that can change in order for us to all of a sudden get wealth. It doesn't work that way.
I'll be right back.
Okay. And especially when you look at what we spend our money on, which is what most people spend their money on. The big three is housing, food, and transportation.
Right.
That's where the majority of our money goes. Like
Right.
everything else is kind of like, you know, a little bit here and a little bit there.
Right.
And because like he was basically saying like, you know, practice group economics and also, and you know, and each person buy two products from the other person that does business. And I'm like, okay, so here's a few reasons why your argument's bad.
Oh, here we go.
You know, like first off, like, and then he did the whole, you know, well, if black people just stop buying Jordans, and I'm like, oh my fucking goodness, like,
Oh, like I haven't heard that before.
oh
That's
my
even
god,
the latest iPhone.
right, exactly, like you,
Mhm.
like, so first off, you're gonna shit on people for being, I don't know, American. Second, also, you know, even if I bought like one iPhone that's like maybe $600 or a pair of Jordans that's like what $200, that's not gonna, just because I did not buy that pair of Jordans or I did not buy that iPhone does not necessarily
Mhm.
that's going to catapult me into wealth. It does not work that way.
Right. Right.
It doesn't work that way. And then also too, like if you take a group of people, like, you know, it's one thing like if you as an individual try to change like some of your spending habits so you can save more. That's fine. But if you are taking a look at an entire group of people, you have to look at their economic position, you know, in order for you to kind of figure out like, you know, what are the things that can be done in order to have this particular group be transfer from one area to another, right?
Yeah, that
Mhm.
And you know, and the reality is that Black Americans, although they're about 13% of the population, we only own about 2.6% of the wealth of the nation.
Yep, that point of you got to look at the whole community is something that I've talked to Jena about before, and that we brought up, is that you can't look at an individual or two or three individuals, right? Because if the Black community in general has less support, familial support, and community support, so if any individual makes it or does well for themselves, they on average have to support far more people who didn't make it and who aren't doing well and don't have the same success than other communities do. So even if you do graduate college, even if you do have a good job, even if you do become a basketball player or sports, because I mean we all know the story with big sports stars that make it. They blow all their money supporting their family and buying cars and houses and paying for education and paying down debt because nobody else in their community can afford to keep themselves afloat.
Exactly.
So anybody, you have to look at the whole community as a whole, as a big unit rather than an individual, because the community, these communities are so distraught and so economically depressed that the people that do make it, they feel they have this responsibility, and their support system it feels like they have this responsibility to help boost everybody else up. But one individual can only lift the tide so much.
Right.
You have to build everybody else up around them.
Right.
Otherwise, you just end up bringing that one person all the way back down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. And I mean, because like, just because there is a Michael Jordan, there's because there's an Oprah Winfrey, and there's just because there's a LeBron James, that is not collective uplift.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, don't forget Obama. All right.
Oh yeah, Obama. Oh,
You know,
I just want to tell you something real quick.
do you do a Obama bit, like a stand up?
I believe I can, Justin, if you allow me to, actually.
Oh, I'm gonna give you all the time you need. Just go ahead.
Talk to you really quick about the myth of Black buying power. It's a myth. It's not something that we actually have. It doesn't exist. You know, if you don't necessarily have a group that adjacent to wealth, they are not going to be able to have the discretionary funds in order for them to be able to buy the way that other groups buy.
Flawless.
So good.
Yeah. Please pull up the.
You know what's funny is
when
when you that cadence and the way you talk like that. I don't even know what you said, but I was like listening to it. You know what I mean? I couldn't like turn away, but nothing meaningful was said, right?
I'm sure there was plenty
Right.
of things that was said because I said it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Everything
There
you
you go.
said was like groundbreaking territory.
It
You're
really
absolutely
was.
right.
Exactly. That's all you got to know. That's all you got to know.
The Obama and The Rock are the same person.
Yeah, but I can't do my eye like that, unfortunately.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Like that.
No. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, I'm so jealous. Oh, I always wish that I had autonomy over my eyebrows. It never happened.
Yeah. But kind of back to your point though, is that if you have a handful of rich black millionaires or billionaires, business moguls, whatever it is, that's not going to raise the whole city of Chicago or the whole city of Detroit. One, these people are not giving back to their communities on any level that you would expect.
Or even have the ability to.
They don't have their wealth doesn't come out of their personal bank account and their pockets. They're CEOs, they're business owners, they're investors, just like everybody else. They can't just give their billions back, just like people think they should be able to.
Mm-hmm.
But if you even with that, there's just not enough to just dump some amount of money into a neighborhood and expect that to take everybody all the way they need to be. It needs to be strategic. It needs to be targeted. It needs to be very specific. It needs to start with things like education, like with better policing, in terms of not breaking up, the nuclear families, and
wealth building programs.
yeah.
I mean, you guys, have we ever heard of the Homestead Act of 1862?
I've heard of the words.
Okay. Well, the Homestead Act of 1862 is basically what helped expand people into the West. So what ended up happening is that you had the government giving out millions of acres of land for free. All you had to do was claim it. Name it and claim it, baby. I'm sorry, I didn't, I went back to my
But did you also have to be a white man to name it and claim it?
Yeah, why? Yes, Justin, you did. Very good. What is you have to be a white man for 200, Alex?
Yeah, that was the standard. That was the standard. Measurement for being an American citizen, a fully whole 100% American citizen back then was a white man, and in some situations already land owning.
So when did that change? 1976 or something like that, or
they were people were able to take advantage of that particular one act for almost into the 80s. To the 1980s.
1980s, yeah.
Yeah, it was an act that lasted for over 100 years, and
I missed out.
Yeah, it was like 97 million people, I want to say, that took advantage of that particular program.
So like 1980s, that would be like Soap Lake or middle of the Yukon, or I mean, what is not claimed by then? I guess there are large swaths of federal land. That's
that
true.
Point though is that the people who claimed it early, the white men and their family, passed it down generation to generation and maintained that property, maintained that wealth, because in this country, owning property, most of any individual or familial wealth is tied up in your property and what you own.
That's true.
So not even having access to that until recently puts you at such a significant, and not even just recently, but so recently that there wasn't even much left or any left to even try to buy when you finally had the opportunity to get it.
And even to that point, over 43 million Caucasians actually are still living off of the wealth of that one act to this very day.
Whew.
And
I need to be adopted.
Damn, right? I mean, like, I remember, like, I had a friend, because we were discussing reparations, and he didn't believe in reparations, right? And then so I mentioned the Homestead Act. And so the government has demonstrated that they were willing to give, peasants an economic floor if they just go out and get it. And it wasn't just giving them land. They also gave them land grants and county agents, and to tell them how to mechanize the land. And then they were able to even to borrow against the land in order for them to build businesses. I mean, a great example of the Homestead Act, a success story, is Purdue Chicken.
Mm.
Purdue Chicken came about because of the Homestead Act.
Don't they keep getting recalls though?
Yeah, but they still around. So there you go. Everybody stop
Well-
eating chicken. Well, I'm a vegan, so I'm gonna tell everybody do that anyway. But but you see, and then he was telling me that he knew a family that is in the Chicago area where they were multiple generations of dentists. And the reason why they were able to go to school in order for them to get their dentistry learning is because of one relative that took advantage of the Homestead Act. And they were able to send their family to school and to have good lives for generations. So, so like that's even when I say that, I mean, like, you have a undergirding from the government that's willing to do this for people. However, you got to be the right person in order for that to transpire.
Right.
So aesthetics, I see this a lot, and I see this a lot more lately. And one thing that is interesting to me is I come across a lot of because I watch a lot of reaction videos to songs and other things in culture. And one thing that I've seen lately is more Black people saying that, making those types of comments of some, especially with artists like Tom McDonald and people that are saying, oh, we shouldn't be racist, we shouldn't make things about race, we shouldn't see color. And then you have a lot of Black people, and definitely more and more white people saying, yeah, we shouldn't see color, we should just work together. But I mean, that's nice, it sounds good, but those are just words.
Exactly.
Right? And people and specifically Black people and Mexicans and other minorities didn't choose to separate themselves, and didn't choose to be redlined, and didn't choose to be opted out of the Homestead Act and these other things. They didn't choose to not have voting rights, or not have marriage rights, and not have all these other rights that were forced upon them by the federal government. And then 40 years later, we just say, yeah, let's just ignore that all of that happened and just be friends now. Everything's cool. Everybody's equal. The people
not.
that you're talking to and telling to stop talking about race
Exactly.
had hundreds of years of race forced upon them, and being made painfully aware of their color of the skin, of their gender, of their ethnicity, of their cultural background, painfully aware by the federal government, the state governments, the local governments. And then when we finally struck down the laws at the federal level, it was still part of the social norms, and still is.
Yep.
You know,
Exactly.
if you didn't look at a Trump picture of the White House and see that it was completely filled with old white men, then you might have an argument. You know what I mean? But until there's more diversity, until predominantly old white men stop telling other people what to do with their bodies, and stop enacting policies and laws that affect other people, that's not even a position that makes any sense to me, because people don't choose to make things about race. It's forced upon them.
I would also say this, especially towards that last portion of the statement about, set it aside and make it the same. The only way that can happen is if the very things that caused the issue are rectified. And the problem is that, even though, like, you have, like, civil rights laws, right, and also you have, like, other, laws that may be on the books, we still have not addressed in this nation, the very economic divide that caused the chasm in the first place. And it has to be at a point where it that the country must recognize its involvement in what this means in the first place, and do the very necessary thing in order for it to be rectified. Now,
what is that?
well, one of the things that I definitely am advocating for is reparations for slavery and Jim Crow and mass incarceration. I believe that there is definitely an argument for it, and we have data that definitely correlates positionality of African Americans to where they are now, because and that goes back to the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. Even like I even made an argument that said that even if slavery even if slavery was done away with and you didn't even pay the slaves, Jim Crow itself made the chasm even larger, because what it did was that it caused the people who somehow made a way to actually have land theft happen, who also had, racist practice against them to not get jobs, or the jobs that they were forced into oftentimes was back on the plantation because they ended up becoming sharecroppers. And also you had so many different instances of Black people leaving certain areas and starting their own townships, and they getting burned down.
Yeah, the Tulsa massacre is a big one. They in Detroit, they bulldozed an entire Black community of businesses and affluent Black citizens to build a freeway through the middle of the city around downtown, just to get in and out of the downtown area faster. And they bulldozed it was called Black Paradise or Black Bottom or something like that, but they just tore the whole neighborhood down.
That's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. What would reparations look like? So reparations, the ones that that I and my advocacy group are pushing for, are cash payments and set-asides. There is a wonderful economist that I would encourage everyone to look up. His name is Dr. William Sandy Darity. He has studied and talked about reparations for over 30 years, and what it would look like and how it even could be implemented. Matter of fact, he did a book. It's a great book. It's called From Here to Equality, where he and he wrote it with his wife, Kirsten Mullen. Kirsten Mullins. And they not only talked about the history of economic plunder, but they also talked about the history of different pushes for reparations, and also came up with a plausible plan and how reparations should be doled out. It is a big number. You have different economists that have different numbers, but let's be known, it's in the trillions.
Yeah, the one I brought up earlier was like 10 to 12 trillion.
Yeah, that's his number, 10 to 12 trillion. You have some other economists that say more. I remember on CNN, there was one economist, he said about 17 to 21 trillion. But it would definitely be, but part of it is cash payments. The other part is other, set-asides and incentives in order to really work on making these communities whole. It's not just about just throwing everybody a check and say go with your day.
Exactly.
No, that it's seed. You know what I'm saying? And it has to be a series of programs and things that's been done over a period of time in order to close the racial wealth gap. That's what Dr. Darity talks about a lot, is that it should be that should be the goal of the reparations program, is to close the racial wealth gap and to work on the very things that are causing the plunder to be made whole. Part of that statistics is education, infrastructure, and and propping up, economic an economic floor, businesses. It's a whole gambit of things. Like,
Yeah.
basically everything else that other people were ended up giving in order for them to actually have a life and create wealth for their group. That's what
Can't
we're
have like a
asking for
food
too.
desert or a desert of medical care and yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood, and I could list the differences of what was available from where I grew up to where I live now,
Hmm.
and that I didn't even and the worst part about it is I didn't even know that there was more resources even out there that existed that were even available that other
Hmm.
people were getting that you didn't get. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? When you grow up poor, when you grow up in these cities, it's in your head that you're stuck there. You have no options, no opportunities, no way to get out.
Right.
And then other people that are out were born that way and have that, that affluence is built into them, and there's no way to attain that, and they're
Hmm.
just rich people devoid of reality. You'll never get there. You'll never be able to integrate or intermingle with them, and they're just a whole different group of people. And that's when you get in the idea that this is just a big class thing, and it's almost like a caste system where you're on the bottom, they're
It
where
is a
they're
caste
at, and
system. It
there's
is a
no way to
caste
migrate
system.
from one to another.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and and it's just that mindset, because you don't even know you don't even know what the options are.
Hmm.
um
That's
you don't see successful people, you don't see people that made it out, because once they get out, they don't come back.
that's right. You can only be what you see. And if that's
um
Hmm.
what, and if you're not seeing, basically, what it is to be like, successful per se, like, legitimately, 9 times out of 10, that's not where you're going to be.
mhm.
I remember, like, having these, even, going back to when we're talking about crime in a lot of these particular communities. You know, if you're looking at the CNA worker who's making $9 an hour versus, the people on the corners that's making
Mhm.
thousands of dollars,
Mhm.
who you gonna want to be with? You're
Yeah.
gonna be what you gonna be want
Absolutely.
to be on the people on the corner. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And because so it's going to be
Yeah.
that
And
difference.
the real gangsters, I've heard this before and I keep repeating it, are the CEOs, are the politicians, are the big business, are the investment brokers. Those are, and not in the illegal way, but the real hustlers, the real people that have made it, the real people that are making the money, making moves, making differences, are in these positions. A Pfizer CEO or a Microsoft CEO puts the biggest drug dealer in history to shame.
Mm.
Jeff Bezos puts every drug dealer in history put together to shame. The real gangsters, the real hustlers, are in these positions that you would never, in your wildest dreams, no matter how many El Capones you put together, would even imagine that any person, let alone you, could even come close to attaining.
Yeah.
And it's because people from your community don't go, just don't have the opportunities to go through those steps to get there.
And they have government
Mm.
on their side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're driving economy.
Yeah.
So the people that own stocks are beholden to those stocks going up.
Yeah.
Anything for that?
Yeah, but like, and like you said though, I mean, everybody in my neighborhood was making minimum wage. I mean, you're lucky if you had a car. Um,
Mhm.
Everybody
Hmm.
rented. Nobody owned their own house.
Right.
Um, Everybody went to public schools. All their kids took the bus. Um,
Mhm.
and so you don't even know what's outside of that, because
Yeah.
you never get the opportunity to see it.
Oh, and even like to that point, like a lot of these, even when you talk about those particular neighborhoods, like oftentimes, like it's very rare for the get out person, right? Like I remember Maya in the chat told a story on how she took a risk, what I'm saying, and so in order for her to leave her neighborhood,
Right.
and but that's not like prevalent you know, in a lot of these areas, just to, you know, like, I'm just going to take a risk, take a little, I'm just going to this and
Yeah.
just like, you know, and try my damnedest to make it. And I mean, bless you if you do, you know, and I think that that should be celebrated, but it's not as prevalent to happen. And
No,
the crazy thing about it is that even for you to actually make that risk, like, there had to be circumstances in where you were that you had to even consider doing the risk in the first place.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. And but you know, a lot of those people end up living back with their parents or their grandparents or their cousins or whatever house back in the ghetto right where they started, after trying to you know, get out and you know, buy a house or even find a better job and this and that, and it doesn't always pan out. But so it's tough if you don't already have that support system, you know, where you're going. One thing I wanted to say is that what opened up my eyes to a lot of these things was the financial crisis, where housing value tanked so much so rapidly in so many areas that it was possible for somebody that was making 30 or 40 grand a year in the city to move to the suburbs. There was a big flight at that time where people that were making, you know, average below average wages to be able to afford to get out of the city. And that's when the public school system tanked even more than it already was. And we just had a lot of schools closed because they were taking their kids and they were getting out.
Yep.
So, I mean, your $600, $700 a month rent in Detroit, you know, that's all they could afford for, you know, mortgage was cheaper than that in the suburbs. So people were buying houses, they're renting in the suburbs, they're getting out and, you know, trying to, you know, look for better school systems and, you know, better social networks and stuff. Because it was an opportunity to do so. And now everything's recovered. That time frame is gone. But that's what it's sad that that's what it takes for, you know, a perceived and not a real one, but a perceived, you know, vertical economic movement. You know, basically the whole country has to go to shit for you to feel like you have a chance to make something of yourself.
Damn.
Do you are you in a positive growth as far as people coming into the cities?
No.
And no.
There's people that are coming in, and there's higher wage earners coming in. So in Detroit, there's a lot of younger and millennial white people coming in to work at the tech companies, because we do have the private business sector is booming, and it has been for a while.
Okay.
And we're getting, like, you know, the Quicken Loans, the Dan Gilberts, and we're getting a lot of startups and tech companies and a lot of movement downtown. And these people are moving into they're moving into really poor neighborhoods, and they're slowly starting to transform these neighborhoods, not quite displacing the current residents, but
there is gentrification going on.
Yeah.
It is starting to happen, right? Because they're moving into rundown neighborhoods, and they're fixing up the houses. They're bringing in outside money and outside people, and they're bringing in money from the downtown area and increasing the property value and taxes and rent prices and stuff in these neighborhoods. So it's slow, because it's only slow because there's so many abandoned houses and open houses in Detroit that it's going to take decades to fill the city back up. And that's the only reason it's slow. If you're in downtown or midtown, gentrification has been underway for 15 years.
But you know what's going to end up happening even in those poor areas, especially if the demographic of people who are having those particular jobs are, you know, Caucasian, then and the people who live in those particular areas are not getting those jobs. They're going to be forced out.
Yep.
You know, it happens all over the place.
It happened in Washington, where Malti's at. I mean, that's probably the biggest example of Silicon Valley and Washington, where you went from a states that they didn't have a whole lot, and then they have these tech booms, and now if you're not in that boom, you can't afford to live there anymore.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, definitely. And well, it's moved out. And yeah, if you didn't, I know people that started with Amazon at the beginning and stayed there for 15 years, just out of college. So at 35, they cashed out of their stock options and are starting a little pottery studio in their backyard because their house is paid off and they can live comfortably for the rest of their life.
But if you also look at the flip side of the people working for Amazon who happen to be, Black folk, they are the essential workers. They're the warehouse workers. They're the ones.
No. This was, no. This was.
He's talking about engineers.
Oh no, I
programmers.
understand. I understand what you're
not the regular people, not
right,
the regular.
But
look, if you're talking about an hourly wage, it doesn't apply. Okay.
Yeah. No, this was actually graphic art design.
Yeah, we're talking about salary workers.
Oh no, I understand. I know exactly who you're talking about. My point, the point I was trying to make is that this the same company that a person in a more salaried technical position could actually get and then make an amazing life for themselves, right? Versus like another person who comes in who doesn't have that skill set, wasn't taught that skill set, not or even had like the the wherewithal to even get the education in order for them to get that skill set. They're going to be locked out. So, they're just going to, do the get in where I can fit in, just so that I can have a job and, eat, right? But at the same time, they're not going to be making that type of money. They're not going to be the ones that's going to even be able to do something as simple as what we consider attaining the American dream, which is purchasing a home, and so yeah, all this needs to change, people. But I will say, like, as far as like the concern, going back to when I mentioned reparations, there is going to be the Congressional Judiciary Committee. They have the subcommittee of equality and racial justice is actually going to be holding a hearing on February the 17th on HR 40. And so good thing for that. But HR 40 in itself is a problematic bill. And it's and for those, this is a quick overview of HR 40. HR 40 is the House bill that had been introduced every year by Representative John Conyers since 1987, since after Reagan signed into law Japanese reparations for Japanese victims who were interned during World War II.
Right.
Yeah.
So he tried to utilize that particular model in order to work on slavery reparations. Anyway, so this particular bill is going to call for a commission to come together in order for them to study and make recommendations of what reparations would look like, and then create a reparations program. So, and they have, and if it's signed into law and they put in the commission, that the commission is supposed to bring forward recommendations within a 12-month period after they've formed. Now there's a few edits that needs to happen to the bill. However, and there's been some edits that were made to the bill since it's been reintroduced at the beginning of this year by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. She's the one who's over that particular bill. So what the group that I'm working with is called Fix HR 40 is as asking for specific specific edits that happen from the person I mentioned previously, Dr. William Sandy Darity. And so we wrote a letter, sending in emails and doing phone calls. And if anybody want to get on that yabba dabba do, holla at me. My link tree is in below. Link tree is below.
Yes.
So you can get at me. I will send you the information if you're wanting to assist with that. But I would definitely say this is the closest that we've actually come to having a very serious conversation on reparations. Like, This is the closest. Like, oftentimes people like, it can't be done. Bernie Sanders said in 2016 when he ran against Hillary Clinton, he said it was going to be divisive. It can't be done. It's going to be too much. And and you had like some other people who said the same thing, but then like a lot of people started changing their tune.
Yeah.
Come April of 2020, and y'all know what happened? April 2020 is when they signed in the CARES Act. $2.2 trillion to be distributed in less than a week.
Mm-hmm.
In less than 1 week. So I'm like, I said, now we can talk about reparations. We totally can talk about reparations.
And
Right.
even before that, I mean, when we go to war and when we launch these military campaigns, we don't sign a check. We don't give a number to it. But I mean, I think we've racked up like $9 trillion or something over OEF, OIF, or some like astronomical amount. It might even be more than that. And it's because we don't, when it becomes to something that so many people agree on, we don't have to justify the expenditure. We just say, this is important to so many people that
So
we're going to get it done no matter what it costs.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if we treated our own at home issues the same way, we'd be a lot further ahead. But when it's something at home, whether it's reparations or getting homeless people off the street or getting free education, whatever it might be, then we have to start counting, tallying up the numbers and let me get out my chalkboard. I don't know where we're going to get this money from, but if a terrorist flew a plane into another building, we would send 3 million people of the U.S. Army over there to take over the whole country, no matter what it costs, because it would be important.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll be thinking, okay, 20 years from now we might be able to start thinking about pulling them out, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And we still like, battling over that. Well, should we
Yeah.
bring the troops home? Well, yeah, we are, but maybe not.
Yeah,
a little bit.
but it's just the fact that is a bipartisan action where Congress always votes, and they even veto the president at this time to vote for our budget because they have to fund the military.
Yeah.
And that's a bipartisan thing to spend, $600 to $700 billion per year on the military.
Beware.
And it's not that it's not important, it is, but there's other things that if we treat it the same way, if we treat it the pandemic crisis or the homelessness crisis or the poverty crisis or, the failed war on drugs instead of a war, but to rehab and to give medical care and education and prevention. But if we treat it these other crises, these other wars the same way, where we just went in and fixed the problem no matter how much it costs and worried about it later, we would have a lot of our own problems, a lot further ahead or solved by now.
Right.
Instead of trying to solve the whole world.
Yeah, well, like this is where I like to insert a Bible verse, y'all.
Goodness.
I know, right? I know. Charity starts at home and then it spreads abroad.
That's very true. It's good. Yes. If we apply that equal amount of focus that we do with whatever military increases outside of home, then we would be a lot better off.
We would.
And it's not difficult to have that discussion about implementing reparations and implementing things that are just right to do.
Yeah, there's some things are just right to do, and especially if you see that there is obviously a need to do it. Things are just. Thank you, Sister. I thought so too. That wasn't a bad Bible verse. There are some Bible verses that are not shitty.
No, not at
Oh,
all.
yeah.
Some are good. Some are actually really nice.
It's the big book of Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yes,
Barnum statements are us.
Both are factual. I like that whole, choose your own journey type thing. In the
Mhm.
book, yeah. Cherry pick. I like that
There you
too.
go.
Yeah, because I like cherry pie. But there you go. That's a whole other issue.
Mm.
What?
Choose my cherry pie. Oh, I'm sorry. We do not have the rights.
No,
Oh, we're getting taken down.
we're very
That's it.
sorry.
We gotta go.
Ah, damn.
Well, Cynthia, I do have to have you come back because obviously the audience loves you, and this was a good discussion. But yeah, definitely have to have you come back at some point. And
I'm
yeah,
down.
good,
I'm
good.
totally down for coming back. It's all good. You just let me know.
I will, of course. I know we have your
So
link tree
so
in.
every Thursday night at 9:30
Mm.
or 8:30 if you're in Chicago, just
Yes.
pop right in.
hmm Just be like, Jenna,
Yay.
send me the link. Yeah.
Jana, send me the link. I got a moment. I can go ahead
Of
and
course.
yabba dabba do this.
Yeah, but do.
To
Yes.
find Cynthia McDonald, the extravagant Miss the Rant. I gotta give you a nickname that's like sticks. I do have her link tree in the description down below where you can just find all the various avenues of social media that you can add her and follow her and argue with her on Twitter, whatever serves you your comfort.
Whatever's your bag, baby. Whatever's your
Right.
bag.
We do typically have like a little after party after show. I know maybe Sticks always has good questions. So I don't know if you want to stick around a little bit, take a little break, up to you. But that is a link to our Discord, tinyurl.com/Discord IF, where you find us. We'll be in there kind of chatting it up a little bit. I know next Thursday we don't have a guest, it's just be a regular show, but in 2 weeks we're actually having the frustrated atheist on. So we'll be talking with him. Good old Russ.
Nice.
Because he bugged me about it. So we'll have him on at the end of the month and we'll see how everything rolls into March. Of course, you can follow Justin on facebook.com/skeptech. And you can follow me on facebook.com/black female atheist. And Multi, where can we find you, young
Oh, you
sir?
can find me at the ACD most times, and I usually am a host at the nonprofits about once every 3 or once every other. You'll see my face on a regular rotation.
Yes.
Indeed.
Very
Multi
good.
is there.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I've been wanting
Yeah,
to have you on for a long time.
Thank you
I
for having me.
yeah, I was happy to be able to jump in when I did.
Yes.
Yes, I was glad to see. Well, it's always a pleasure to see you, Malty and
Thank you.
Justin.
You too.
All a pleasure, even though we usually just interact via Facebook, but it was good to interact with you virtually in conversation.
Definitely. Yes.
I just send random links now,
It's all good.
like that Willie Jones earlier.
That was a good link,
Yeah, it
and
was.
usually I am not like a country
Country.
music flat fan. Also, fan. But that song, yeah, I was like, and I started to on Twitter, and people was like, "Whoa, this song is." I was like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah."
Yeah.
Y'all check out American Dream. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, it was a good song
It is
by
a good song.
I think
Willie
it was Willie
Jones.
Jones' his
Yeah,
name.
Willie Jones. Yep, Willie Jones, American
He's
Dream.
a black country singer, and
Yep.
he's legit.
Yeah, he is. I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna. I can't shit on it. It was. Usually I can find. Well, when he did this, I can't even shit on that song. That's
American Dream, right
yeah.
there.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Very
it's
nice.
it's legit, y'all. Check it out.
Yes.
All right.
Well, on that note, we'll see most of you in the Discord if you join us. Until next time, see you next Thursday. Goodbye.